In a jaw-dropping backstage twist, WWE power couple Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins are at the center of chaos. Seth Rollins denies Becky's pregnancy and drops a devastating cheating accusation that leaves the man emotionally shattered. This explosive confrontation will shake the WWE universe. What really happened between Becky and Seth? Is this the end of their relationship and their dominance in WWE? What if I told you, the strongest couple in WWE history, two champions forged through pain, triumph, and rebellion, may now be standing on the edge of collapse? And what if the reason wasn't a title loss, a heel turn, or even an in-ring betrayal, but something far more personal? A shocking backstage moment. A denial. A single sentence that shattered the woman known as the Man. This isn't just another wrestling storyline. This is emotional reality bleeding into the locker room, into the cameras, and into the hearts of millions. Because according to multiple sources close to the situation, Seth Rollins has just accused Becky Lynch of something unthinkable. And he's denied the very thing she believed would finally bring them closer together. A child. For the first time in their shared WWE journey, it wasn't about championships. It wasn't about legacy. It was about trust. And how easily it can break when fame becomes a weapon instead of a shield. The tension had been building for weeks, whispers in the corridors of Raw and SmackDown tapings. Glances exchanged, schedules quietly changed, hotel bookings mysteriously separate. And then, the silence. The kind that precedes a storm. And it was at last week's Raw, backstage, out of the view of cameras, but not out of earshot, that the confrontation happened. Sources describe it as sudden, raw, and devastating. Seth Rollins, visibly shaken, allegedly approached Becky just minutes after her match. She was still in her gear, still breathing heavily from the roar of the crowd, when he looked at her, and asked a question that didn't come from concern. It came from suspicion. "Are you really pregnant?" And before she could answer, he added something colder. Something crueler. "Or is this just another lie to keep me here?" Those who witnessed the moment say Becky didn't speak. She froze. Her fingers gripped the edge of her locker as if to steady herself. And then came the final blow, Seth's voice, this time not a question. An accusation. "Is there someone else?" The backstage area fell quiet. Trainers, staff, even talent pretended to busy themselves. But no one left. No one looked away. And Becky, the Man, so often the embodiment of fire, defiance, and indomitable spirit, reportedly broke down. Not with rage. But with silence. A single tear, and then she left. No words. No answers. No fight. The fallout has been seismic. This is not a couple built on tabloid fluff. Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins have, for years, represented something rare in WWE, a relationship not only respected but revered. Fans saw in them a fusion of grit and glamour. She, the Irish scrapper who clawed her way from NXT irrelevance to WrestleMania main events. He, the architect turned visionary, balancing chaos with charisma. Together, they were power, heart, and rebellion. But beneath the surface, cracks have long been rumored. Friends close to the couple have confirmed that the pressures of maintaining a relationship in the spotlight, especially in an industry as unforgiving as professional wrestling, were taking a toll. Separate travel schedules. Clashing booking decisions. The stress of parenting while constantly touring. And recently, a subtle but undeniable shift in how they appeared together publicly. Becky stopped appearing ringside for Seth's matches. Their once joint interviews turned solo. The social media posts, once brimming with joy, banter, and love, began to slow. And then, they stopped altogether. But fans chalked it up to kayfabe. A work. A temporary divergence to build storyline intrigue. Until now, because what's unfolding behind the curtain isn't a storyline. It's a fracture. A painful, personal rupture that has nothing to do with championship belts and everything to do with betrayal. Sources close to Becky say she had confided in a few close friends, superstars, producers, even a medical team member, that she had recently learned she was pregnant again. It was meant to be a moment of hope. A new chapter in a chaotic life. A gift. And while she hadn't made a public announcement, she was preparing to. Carefully. Privately. She had told Seth. Or thought she had, but something changed. Because Rollins, according to insiders, never truly believed it. Not because he was heartless, but because something, or someone, had planted doubt in his mind. The rumor? A second-hand tip that Becky had been seen with another man during an overseas appearance, weeks before the alleged conception. A producer. Married. Off-limits. But the rumor spread. Quietly. Viciously, and Seth, under pressure, reportedly snapped. The accusation wasn't about a name. It wasn't about a specific event. It was about fear. Control. The pain of not knowing what's real anymore when the cameras are always rolling. But in saying those words, in denying Becky's pregnancy, in accusing her of infidelity, he did more than lash out. He broke something sacred. Becky has remained publicly silent. But backstage, the tone has shifted. She's requested her own locker room space. She's cancelled multiple media appearances. She's spoken only to a small circle of confidants, and even then, few details have emerged. But one thing is clear, she's devastated. One veteran WWE official, who has worked closely with both Becky and Seth for over 5 years, said simply, "I've never seen her like this. And I've seen her after concussions, torn ligaments, backstage blow-ups. This is different." The question now isn't just what happened. It's what happens next. Because this isn't just a relationship on the rocks, it's a brand, a foundation, a symbol of strength for the WWE universe. Their bond was more than personal. It was part of the show. Part of the product. Part of the myth. So what happens when that myth breaks? Already, plans for upcoming pay-per-view events are being rewritten. Mixed tag matches quietly scrapped. Future title runs paused. There's even speculation that Becky may take time off entirely, though whether for her own well-being or due to pregnancy remains unanswered. And Seth? He's still showing up. Still wrestling. Still smiling during press. But behind the curtain, several wrestlers have noticed a change. He's quieter. More intense. Some say he's spiraling. Others say he's calculating. But no one denies he's hurting. Those closest to him believe the cheating accusation wasn't about betrayal, it was about control. A desperate attempt to reclaim something in a life that's spinning. Seth Rollins, the man known for embracing chaos, may finally be crushed by it. And Becky Lynch, the woman known for owning every room she walks into, may now be questioning everything. This is no longer a love story. It's a reckoning, and the WWE universe, loyal but ruthless, has taken sides. Online, hashtags like #StandWithBecky and #RollinsExposed are trending. Fans are dissecting interviews from months ago, rewatching body language, reinterpreting harmless exchanges as red flags. Every backstage leak becomes gospel. Every silence becomes an admission, and yet, the truth remains elusive. Is Becky really pregnant? Was there ever someone else? Or is this a case of miscommunication turned into character assassination? Because that's the tragedy, isn't it? That even the strongest bonds, when tested under the white-hot light of public scrutiny, can buckle. That trust, once cracked, becomes almost impossible to restore. That even in a business built on illusion, the realest pain often happens off-screen, and the most important question of all, the one Becky herself is reportedly asking, isn't why did he say it? It's, did he ever really believe in us? Back in the quiet corridors of WWE's production offices, the fallout from Seth Rollins' confrontation with Becky Lynch has triggered what many are calling an internal emotional containment crisis. But this time, it isn't a scripted feud threatening to derail the show, it's real life, unraveling in real time. And the impact is being felt across every level of WWE's creative, from top-tier talent to backstage producers, and all the way to the office of Paul "TripleH" Levesque himself, because Becky isn't just another performer. She's the man. She's a face of the company. A symbol of strength, resilience, and legacy. And Seth Rollins? He's not just her husband. He's a pillar of Raw. A reigning icon who carries the weight of expectation with every entrance, every match, every moment under the lights. So when cracks appear in a foundation this strong, everyone feels it. Everyone is forced to respond, and Triple H, well, he's caught in the middle. Insiders say the chief content officer has held multiple private meetings in the past 48 hours, one with Becky, one with Seth, and one with the PR and creative teams responsible for planning their shared narratives. The goal? Control the damage. Avoid leaks. Manage perception. But most importantly, figure out if this is salvageable. Not just the storyline. Not just the appearances. But the couple. According to someone present in one of those meetings, Triple H didn't speak like a boss. He spoke like a father figure. "We've been through worse," he reportedly said to Becky. "But only if we're honest with ourselves about where we are." Her response? Silence. Then, with tears in her eyes, she said something chilling. "He looked at me like I was a stranger." And that's what this really is now. Not just betrayal. But unfamiliarity. Alienation. The horror of being looked at by someone who once loved you completely, and seeing doubt instead of devotion. Becky, according to several sources, has been isolating. Friends say she has stopped answering texts from talent. She's declined fan meet and greets, cancelled podcast appearances, and even left group chats she once dominated with her signature fire. Those closest to her describe her as emotionally detached, protective of her space, and most heartbreakingly, like she's grieving something she hasn't even lost yet. And maybe she is. Maybe, deep down, Becky Lynch knows this isn't just a phase. Maybe she knows that when someone questions the very truth of your motherhood, the very core of your shared joy, it's hard to come back from that. But what about Seth? Sources say Rollins is trying to keep up appearances. He's pushing through his scheduled segments, appearing in pre-tapes, and staying locked into matches with rising stars like Braun Breaker and Sami Zayn. But backstage? The walls are cracking. One producer described him as wired, short-tempered, and haunted. And then there was the moment no one can ignore, the locker room breakdown. According to two eyewitnesses, after a post-match segment last Friday, Seth was seen sitting alone in a dark corner of gorilla position. Head in his hands. Silent. Until he muttered, almost under his breath, "I think I messed this up." The confession didn't come with cameras. It wasn't intended for the audience. It was human. Raw. And it told the story more powerfully than any promo ever could, because maybe Seth Rollins didn't set out to destroy what he had. Maybe he's just drowning in paranoia, poisoned by pressure, overwhelmed by the tightrope of being both a WWE superstar and a real-life partner in a world where reality and performance blur dangerously close. But intention doesn't undo impact. And Becky? She's not waiting for an apology. According to close friends, she started meeting with legal counsel, not for a breakup, but to explore her options if things continue to spiral. Child custody isn't yet on the table, but brand protection is. Because in the eyes of the WWE universe, perception is power. And if Becky is seen as unstable, weak, or dishonest, she knows the empire she's built, the image of the man, could begin to crumble. That's why, sources say, she's preparing a statement. It won't be a tweet. It won't be a TikTok. It'll be something bigger. A sit-down interview. Possibly with a trusted wrestling journalist or even a crossover media platform like ESPN. And when it happens, it won't be explosive. It'll be surgical. Controlled. Devastating in its restraint. Because Becky doesn't need to yell to be heard. All she has to do is speak the truth. But what is the truth? Was there another man? Was the pregnancy real? Or is all of this, the pain, the doubt, the silence, the result of a deeper, unspoken wound between two people who've spent too long pretending to be stronger than they really are? Some backstage sources suggest this moment was inevitable. That even before the accusations, Seth and Becky were on divergent paths. That their careers, though intertwined, have always been in quiet competition. That the push-pull of fame, family, and expectation had left them emotionally exhausted. And that this moment was just the tipping point. Others, however, believe it's salvageable. There's still love there, one longtime WWE veteran told us. You can see it. You can feel it. But love doesn't survive in silence. Someone has to speak first. That someone, according to new whispers, might not be Becky or Seth, but someone from the outside, because now, WWE's top brass, possibly even Nick Khan himself, is getting involved. Not just because it's a PR mess, but because the integrity of the entire WWE brand is at stake. This isn't just about two wrestlers anymore. It's about storylines. About sponsorships. About the emotional connection millions of fans feel toward this couple. Internally, WWE is preparing for multiple outcomes if they reconcile. Plans are being developed for a high-profile televised reunion moment, possibly at SummerSlam or Survivor Series. A way to turn the real pain into a scripted redemption arc. If they separate, WWE may pivot hard, split brands, distance their storylines, and slowly phase out any shared references in commentary or merch. And if things get worse, if legal action is taken, if Becky decides to walk away again, this time not just for maternity leave but for good, WWE is preparing a crisis management plan to handle fan backlash and media scrutiny. Because this is no longer just gossip. This is the emotional backbone of the company fracturing. And the timing couldn't be worse. SummerSlam is weeks away. Becky was rumored to headline. Seth is still holding the keys to multiple creative feuds. But the backstage energy now? It's unstable. Electric. And everyone is waiting for the next shoe to drop, because there's one thing no one has heard yet. A word from Becky herself, and in that silence, there's fear that the man may not just be hurt, she may be done. Outside the WWE arenas, the story has erupted into something far bigger than a locker room scandal. It has become a cultural moment, a heartbreaking fracture between two of the most beloved figures in professional wrestling, now playing out across podcasts, YouTube exposés, and viral threads dissecting every past interaction between Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. And the headlines? They're merciless. The man betrayed? Rollins denies fatherhood in backstage blow-up. Becky's silent cry. When love isn't enough. It's not just the wrestling media that's watching. Entertainment Tonight, TMZ, ESPN, even People magazine have reached out for statements. None have been returned. But that silence hasn't stopped the speculation. Instead, it's fueled it. And now, influencers, commentators, and fans are turning Becky and Seth's private implosion into public property. Social media is on fire. TikToks analyzing their body language during joint interviews from as far back as 2022 are gaining millions of views. Fan compilations of happier times, Becky holding their child ringside, Seth grinning during a mixed tag, are now repurposed with sad piano music and captions like "They looked so in love." The comments below these videos are filled with heartbreak, anger, and grief. Some are pleading with Seth to apologize. Others are calling for Becky to stand strong. But the one question no one can seem to answer is, how did we get here? Because just months ago, they were WWE's power couple. Two people who had transcended kayfabe. Who had seemingly found balance between parenthood and performance, fame and family. Now? They're ghosts in each other's spotlight, and no one feels the emotional weight of that more than Becky. Sources within her circle say she's retreated to a private residence outside Orlando, away from the buzz of the Performance Center, away from the fans, away from Seth. She's not alone. Her mother flew in from Ireland 2 days after the confrontation. Her childhood best friend arrived shortly after. And while WWE security has been stationed nearby, Becky's request has been simple: no calls. No cameras. No pressure. But inside that house, behind those blackout curtains, the man is grieving not just the accusation. Not just the relationship. But the realization that the person she built a life with, stood beside, defended, celebrated, now saw her as suspect. As someone capable of deception. as a stranger. Those who have spoken to her during this time describe a woman moving between numbness and fury. One moment, she's silent, staring at old ultrasound images she hadn't yet shared with the world. The next, she's pacing, whispering to herself things like, "How did he let this happen?" or "He should have known better." Her phone is filled with unsent messages. Some to Seth. Some to her fans. Some to her daughter, voice memos she records late at night, trying to make sense of something that makes no sense at all. In one of them, according to a close friend, she says simply, "I don't know who he became. But I'm still me. I'm still your mom." And that's what's keeping her grounded now. Not the career. Not the headlines. But her child, because amid all the chaos, Becky has reportedly doubled down on what matters most to her now, protecting her daughter from the noise. She's been working with a crisis therapist. Not to fix her marriage, but to process the emotional earthquake she's endured. And more importantly, to find the strength to parent through it, because if Seth's denial of her pregnancy was a moment of pain, his cheating accusation was a moment of annihilation. Not just of trust, but of dignity, and that's something Becky Lynch isn't willing to surrender. Not for the crowd. Not for the cameras. Not even for him, which brings us to the looming confrontation everyone in WWE dreads and anticipates, because despite everything, despite the silence, the press, the heartbreak, Becky Lynch is still under contract. And according to internal reports, she's been booked for a closed-door meeting at WWE headquarters in Stamford next week. A meeting that may determine not only her future, but the entire narrative direction of WWE's next 6 months. Those familiar with the plan say it will include Triple H, Nick Khan, and possibly even Ari Emanuel, given the optics and potential fallout. The agenda is clear. Is Becky prepared to return to programming in any capacity? What are the emotional and logistical boundaries she's setting, and is there any path forward that involves reconciliation, with Seth, or with the brand? What's unclear is whether Seth will be present. That decision reportedly rests with Becky, and that silence between them? It hasn't been broken. Seth has not reached out, not directly. WWE staffers have tried to relay messages, but Becky has declined them all. One source says she left a single note for Seth backstage last week. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't even angry. It said just 2 words, "You chose." And perhaps he did. Perhaps in his panic, his fear, his spiral, Seth Rollins made a choice he can never take back. A choice that wasn't about truth, but about mistrust. About pressure. About everything this business does to the people who give their souls to it, because that's the part fans often forget. This isn't just about characters on a screen, these are people. Real people. Living under lights that never go out. Wrestling with fame, identity, trauma, and expectation every day. And sometimes, even the strongest can fall apart in the most human ways, which brings us to what happens next. Becky's return, if it happens, won't be triumphant. It won't be fiery. It'll be cautious. Boundaried. She has no interest, we're told, in turning this into a storyline. No interest in using pain for pop. But she also knows that silence breeds its own kind of narrative, and so the plan, tentative, delicate, is for Becky to deliver her truth. On her terms. An exclusive interview. A sit-down conversation. No glitz. No promo package. Just her, a chair, and the story of what really happened that night backstage. When that moment comes, it will break the internet. It will shatter illusions. And it may, finally, allow her to reclaim what was taken from her. But until then, the silence remains. Seth, meanwhile, is reportedly preparing a statement of his own. It may be an apology. It may be a denial. It may be a desperate attempt at repair. No one knows yet. But insiders say he's been deeply affected. That he's begun seeing a therapist through WWE's wellness program. That he started asking hard questions about how he let it get this far. He's not broken. But he's humbled, and maybe, just maybe, that's where healing begins. Still, for the fans, for the WWE Universe, for those who believed in them, this moment is hard. Because it feels like the end of something sacred. The last true wrestling love story, now fraying in real time. But here's the truth, this isn't a heel turn. This isn't kayfabe. This is a reckoning. A test of love, identity, and forgiveness. Played not under bright lights, but in the shadows backstage, where the real battles are fought. Where the true champions are those who survive the storm, and still know who they are on the other side. As the days tick down to Becky's scheduled meeting at WWE headquarters, a quiet tension grips the company, one that no championship match, no surprise return, and no heel turn could possibly eclipse. This is bigger than ratings. Bigger than storylines. This is about identity, Becky's, Seth's, and WWE's own. Because what happens when your most emotionally resonant couple begins to unravel in full view of the world? What do you do when the strongest part of your brand becomes its most fragile? In Stamford, executives are strategizing not like promoters, but like crisis managers. And in the creative department, ideas are being scrapped faster than they're pitched. A major mixed tag storyline featuring Becky and Seth as the last of the greats has been buried. Brand campaigns once centered on their real-life bond have been shelved indefinitely. Even merchandise, t-shirts that read Love and Violence and The Architect and the Man, has been pulled from the shelves. Quietly. Subtly. But the message is clear, WWE is bracing for the worst, because while the world waits to hear Becky speak, they're also preparing for what happens if she doesn't. If she walks away, and internally, many believe that's where this is headed. One executive familiar with the ongoing situation put it bluntly, this isn't just burnout. This isn't just a spat. This is trauma. This is someone reevaluating everything she built, and wondering if it's still worth it. Behind the scenes, talent morale is tense. Wrestlers are whispering. Staffers are keeping their heads down. And at the center of it all is Seth, still showing up to Raw tapings, still performing, still walking through Gorilla with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Those close to him say he's begun to unravel quietly. That he keeps rewatching footage, not of matches, but of interviews. Moments from WWE 24, The Bump, even WrestleMania clips where Becky stood beside him, laughing, glowing, strong. He watches them alone, they say. And sometimes, he mutters under his breath, "What was I thinking?" There's guilt. There's confusion. And yes, there's regret. But for Becky, it may be too late. Her team has been working tirelessly in the background, not to spin the story, but to protect her. Plans for the interview are being finalized. The location will be neutral. The interviewer, someone trusted, likely a woman, someone from outside the wrestling sphere, known for sensitivity and discretion. The tone? Honest. Controlled. Devastating in its simplicity. Becky doesn't want to hurt Seth. She doesn't want to destroy him publicly. But she also refuses to lie. She refuses to be the villain in someone else's nervous breakdown. She'll tell the truth. That she was pregnant. That she shared that news with joy. That she was met not with celebration, but suspicion. That the man she trusted, the man she chose to raise a family with, looked her in the eyes and asked if she had cheated. She'll explain the silence. The nights spent alone. The daughter she held tightly as her own identity unraveled. The moment she looked at herself in the mirror and whispered, "Am I still the man, if the man I love doesn't believe me?" And she'll likely end with grace. With forgiveness. But not with reconciliation, because some wounds don't close in time for the next show. Some pain can't be rebranded, and this pain? It runs deep. But even in heartbreak, Becky Lynch is still a force. A presence. A fighter. She may not be holding a title right now, but in many ways, she's facing the hardest fight of her life. Not in the ring, but in the rawness of being misunderstood. Of being doubted. Of being told the most beautiful moment of your life might be a lie. That fight can't be choreographed. It can only be survived. And the fans? They see it, they feel it. They've turned from spectators into protectors, flooding social media with messages of love, support, and solidarity. They're sharing stories of their own heartbreaks, their own betrayals. And in doing so, they're reminding WWE, that she's not alone, because while titles are temporary, trust is not. While matches come and go, trauma lingers.